Well, the whole idea behind intentional media is to become a platform where, yes, all opinions matter and all voices matter. I have also found as a ghostwriter and in publishing, it's all about money. It's all about like how many followers you have, how many likes you have, how many, everyone deserves a voice. But there are so many people that don't get that opportunity because they don't have that platform for whatever reason.
Mm.
And I don't think those voices should be stifled.
Welcome to the Feminine Alchemy Podcast, where we explore the truth about the feminine, the peaceful, the wild, and the visceral. I'm your host, J.N. Behringer, joined by my co-hosts, Julie Dean Richards and Kaylee Rose. Each week, we explore the deep mysteries of the feminine and help listeners apply them to their daily lives in a practical way. Join us to unlock the hidden wisdoms your soul has been waiting for. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Feminine Alchemy. I am your host, Julie Dean Richards, and today I am with a very special guest who has become a good friend and who is just someone I look up to and that I love. And her name is Courtney Meyers, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about her, and she will blow your socks off. So Courtney is an Emmy-nominated writer and producer with 18 plus years working with some of the biggest names in Hollywood. She is a best-selling ghostwriter, authoring her debut novel, and host of the breakout podcast Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers. She's a graduate from the University of Southern California's prestigious Annenberg School of Journalism and has trained extensively with multi-best-selling author and renowned intuitive mentor Sonia Choquette.
Choquette, yep.
Choquette. A wife and mother of two, Courtney is a California native living in Tennessee on a mission of growth, healing, and soul searching, striving to help others unleash their voice, connect to their most authentic self, and live a life they love. Well, thank you for being here, Courtney.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be on the other side and chat with you.
Oh, yeah, it's so fun. Courtney and I have been able to chat before and do a little conversation on her podcast, which is on pause right now, but it's all the episodes are up. Everything she's doing is still there. She has amazing, amazing content, but she is in the middle of creating something incredible, a really cool book. And she's also ghostwriting another book. She's just doing so much stuff. She just had to stop for this season. But everyone should still check out Intentional Courtney. And I have loved so many of the episodes that you have done and was just honored to be a guest on your podcast. And I just want to start with your journey, right? So you're Emmy nominated, you went to the school for journalism, you've done so much. So now you've left Hollywood. I would just
Mhm.
love to hear a little bit about your journey. So let's start from the beginning. Why did you get into, producing and doing all the things that you do? Maybe let's start there at the beginning of your career.
It's funny. It's funny how you fall into different positions. And sometimes I question why I went the way I did. Because growing up, I was a performer, always, on stage in front of the camera, from beauty pageants to dance recital to head cheerleader, like all of that stuff. And I was a talker and just talk, 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 talk. And it's really funny how you get told what you should do or who you are going to be when you grow up. So as a performer, having my family see, and I loved that I loved that. And I love to ask questions and I love to talk. So having, my family seeing that, they told me, you need to be a lawyer or a news anchor. That's what I told. And literally, I took that to heart. Words mean so much to me in general. Obviously, I'm a writer, I'm a creator in that way. So when someone says that to me, it's like I internalized it. So from a very, very young age, I knew I was going to be a lawyer or on TV as a news anchor. So, of course, I went to journalism school And I had law as my second major for a little bit, but kind of dropped that. But I was going to be a journalist and I was going to be a news anchor until I fell in love really with writing. And writing has always been in my past. But then I realized that if I just put myself on TV as a news anchor, then I lost the power of my words. Like someone else was going to be writing, unless you go into commentary, but you don't really know all the different ways, when you're young and figuring this out. So in college, I realized like all I'm going to be doing is, the Ron Burgundy, unique
Mhm.
New York, reading whatever is on the screen. And you don't really have the power of your voice. And I realized the real power was behind the scenes and the producing. So I kind of took that route and I learned to create and produce. And I loved it. But always watching others do what I thought I was going to do from the sidelines kind of sat with me in an icky way. I'm like, no, I should be up there. I should be doing that. And this came after years and years of realizing that you can't actually have a voice and be on the stage or in front of the camera. Um, but I was diligent, a hard worker, and just continued to do it. I've worked, like you read in the bio, with everyone, everything. I've done everything from walking the red carpet at the Academy Awards to creating promos and trailers for Two and a Half Men and Simpsons and Cox or CSI to being embedded on daytime talk shows. The last stint I did was on The Real, which was for a long time. It was just coincided with Ellen. And it was great and I loved it. But then COVID happened and
Mhm.
production shut down.
Mm.
And then I was left with like, what am I going to do now? And it was this weird event. And it was kind of, I took it as the universe telling me, it's time. It's time to do you and stop doing others, stop promoting
Mm.
others. Because I had just had my baby. I just had my first baby, my daughter. I'd come back from maternity leave. It was, I had her in September. I went back in January to the show. And by March, everything had shut down. And
Mm.
and then they said they were going to use the person that I trained to cover for me on maternity leave to just cover whatever came up. Well, the show
Mm.
didn't really stop and she was a lot cheaper. There's a
Mhm.
lot of things that went into it.
Mhm.
And in essence, I got furloughed
Mhm.
for a period of time until they decided, oh no, we just don't want to pay your salary.
Mm.
And I took a long, hard look at that and realized, what do I want to do with this information? And that's what kind of got me out of Hollywood. I started looking around the world, what was going on. My husband and I realized we don't have to be stationed where we are. We have
Mhm.
freedom now, and I have freedom to create. And so I left. I left Hollywood. I was living in San Diego at the time. We packed up and we moved our family. By the time this all came to culmination, I had had two kids. And we packed up our son and our daughter and our home and we moved from Southern California to Tennessee. And I really went all in on me. And I haven't looked back. Yeah.
Mhm. Wow, that's amazing. It's a really fascinating story. And I have heard this similar story with so many people that, well, it's someone, we had someone cheaper. We had someone who could come in. We don't want to,
Hmm.
even my own husband, when he lost his job, it really was about he was making a higher salary, right? And
Yeah.
someone else was cheaper, right? Who could come in.
Hmm.
And I'm just curious, like this transition for you. So you move, you start doing your own thing, right?
Hmm.
I would love to know. I guess I think probably people will be dying to know before we move on a little bit, like what is it like to work in Hollywood? What is it like to work with stars? What is that like for
Hmm.
you?
It's hard. I think being an empath, it's really hard because you're
Mhm.
taking on, and it's actually not the stars so much. It's really like the bigger the star, the better they are to work with. They're
Mm.
professional. They
Mhm.
get it. They don't demand, like, they're just people.
Mhm.
It's like those people that are really trying to make something of themselves that can come in and be kind of bitchy and horrible.
Mhm.
Um, I actually find the worst part is of the people behind the scenes. There is this ego structure in Hollywood.
Mm.
Um, that is hard to match. I mean, I think there's a couple industries where you're going to find this, but it is crazy. And I will say everything is contrived. There is this ego play, and no one wants to hear, at least from my perspective, because I wasn't necessarily in a creative farm. I was in a sales position type of thing. I would
Mhm.
do creative marketing essentially. I
Mhm.
would create promos and trailers for different shows. So I wasn't
Mhm.
in this big room of creatives like coming up with great ideas and let's share them and how do we get them out into the world. It
Mhm.
was very like manufactured, how they want things to do. And the thing that's the funniest is I worked on so many female based shows that
Mhm.
were geared towards a female audience, towards
Mhm.
our demographic essentially.
Mhm.
And behind the scenes running it were men.
Mhm.
And this drove me absolutely crazy. Not that men can't do it, but that they would tell me exactly what women wanted to hear or what they
Mhm.
wanted to know. And they didn't have their finger on the pulse of what everyday women wanted to know and hear. And they would
Mhm.
come in with these notes and tell you, this is what you have to do. And this is how, and they were just so detached and off base.
Mhm.
And you become very numb to criticism. I will say that
Mhm.
because it's just like you don't get attached to your work
Mhm.
when you're in a creative space like that. You just don't. You just know that things are going to change and they're going to be fluid, and you do what you need to do. And I loved the creative aspect of it, but like the structures behind the scenes and the agenda pushing is
Mhm.
just crazy. And that is another
Mhm.
thing that obviously like I needed to get away from. I didn't
Mhm.
like having to push these narratives and these
Mhm.
agendas of people that
Mhm.
were kind of out of touch. I remember
Mhm.
one time, I'll tell you this one story because it like kind of sums it all up. It was very interesting. I was working on a test show over the summer because a lot of times when you're working on a TV show, they go on hiatus for a couple months during the summers and they will test out a new show for like 6 weeks to see if it's going to go, if it's going to have some traction. And I was on this show working, and they were like, I can't remember if it was 4 or 6 different preachers from,
Mhm.
like a Baptist, a Catholic,
Mhm.
or not a Catholic, like a Christian, like 4 different denominations.
Mhm.
And they were these black men, most of them were black men from the South. And I thought, okay, this is super interesting. They invited, and then because they invited on as a guest Ann Coulter, who is
Oh. Mhm.
like this is a
Mhm.
very different view. And I was
Mhm.
like, yes, this is
Mhm.
going, like, I was looking forward to this immensely, thinking, great, we are going to get different perspectives. We are going to have an interesting conversation, people from very different walks of life. And literally, it was so whitewashed, so boring, so just not like she steamrolled them. But it was just like it wasn't open. And that's kind of what Hollywood is. Like there's no open conversation in my feeling. It's just a very one track mind.
Mhm.
And I don't care where your beliefs are on any side of the political spectrum, on anything, on social, whatever. We need to create spaces for open conversation.
Mhm.
That's the only way we grow as a community. And when we are so focused on one vision, one viewpoint, only surrounding ourselves with like minded people, there's no depth to
Mhm.
society and what we're doing. And so that's kind of like what really is fueling what I want to do now is this like openness that everyone has a voice. And so many people's eyes are trained and focused on Hollywood,
Mhm.
and Hollywood only has one voice for the
Mhm.
most part. For the most part, there's snippets here and there, but for the most
Mhm.
generalizing, for the most part. And I just got tired of it. I'm sick of it.
Yeah, totally. Well, yeah, and I would love to talk a little bit more about that because I don't think people realize how like the
Mm.
people behind their media really do have an agenda, right? Like there's an
So
agenda. They want you to look at things a certain way. And for people who don't know, Ann Coulter is kind of an outspoken conservative woman. She's got a bunch of books. And so
mhm.
the idea with what you were doing was, okay, let's get people who are from maybe a more liberal background who are also Christian because Ann Coulter's pretty Christian, I would say. Like
Yes,
she's
yeah,
very like focused on God, but to look from two different kinds of, political spectrum, two different sides of things and different ways of seeing things and let them actually have a debate, right? Like let them actually
yes.
talk to each other,
Mhm.
right? And but in your experience that didn't happen. There
No.
was totally one-sided view to make it look one way.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, it's like it even opened up my eyes. I remember during the Trump Biden, was it Trump Biden? I think it must have been the Trump Biden. I don't know, one of the elections.
Mhm.
And maybe it was before that. Maybe it was when Trump won the first time,
Hillary.
but it
Mhm.
might have been Trump Hillary. And I
Mhm.
remember sitting, and we did a live show during that, and sitting in the control room, and everyone just ultra focused on one outcome that they wanted.
Mhm.
And we had the one thing that stood out to me that was great about that, which is very rare, is we had a different guest on the show that day. And we had Killer Mike on the show. And he's like Atlanta Southern, he is very left, but he
Mhm.
came on the show. And most of the women that were on the show on the panel were very left leaning as well, which is fine. Believe what you want to believe. I'm not here to be political, but I loved the fact that he came on the show and wanted to play devil's advocate. He wanted to see things from the other side. He wanted to have those conversations. And it made me love him. Not necessarily that we agreed in our viewpoints, but because he was open to hearing every viewpoint and creating an opinion for themselves. I grew up in a household where my parents are like die hard watch the news. Like they sleep with the news on. And I'm always like, do you know what that's doing to your subconscious mind? You're like
Right.
literally sleeping and taking this in. And I was a news junkie too. I went to journalism school. I love it.
Mhm. Mhm.
But you realize, like, once you realize like the what's behind what's being said, and that
Mhm.
there is an agenda, like they believe anything and everything that
Mhm.
is spouted from that TV. It's just that's fact. And it's just not. I want people to realize and start to think for themselves. It's not. And it's hard. It's really hard to go out there and get information that is accurate, because we have to question every source now. I mean, everything that's
Mhm.
going on with Instagram and Zuckerberg. I mean,
Mhm.
we're seeing it unfold. He's admitting to them, lying essentially. But
Mhm.
so it's like,
Mhm.
where do we get this? You worked with RFK, I know. So then
Yeah.
his team.
Yep.
Where do we get our information from? We have to look within. We have to like let it sit with us and see what rings true for us. But the first step is, I think, really realizing that media is pushing an agenda, and don't think that I don't think that everyone does realize that, or maybe they don't want to know. I don't know what it is, but I've seen how the sausage is made, and it's not pretty.
Mhm. Yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, I think it also comes from this idea that, like, it's easier to just
mhm.
listen to people who agree with you.
Yeah,
It's so
yeah,
much easier, right? It's you don't have to take a look at yourself. You don't have to ask yourself questions. And it
hmm
also really has to do with this cognitive dissonance, right? Like you don't have to deal with your own cognitive dissonance, which makes people angry. I think most people don't understand. So for people who don't know what cognitive dissonance is, it's when you get information that doesn't match your core beliefs or your viewpoint. And what happens is we've done brain scans on this. Like there is so many studies that show that when that happens, your brain lights up and your anger gets triggered really quickly. Your
hmm
body has a physical response because your body has a survival response. It's trying to say, oh my gosh, if what I believe, my core values, if they're not true, then I will die. Which seems extreme, but that's really what your body's doing, right? Like, I will die. And so you react like you're going to die. And this is why we see in, arguments, people being so angry at each other and tearing each other apart because to them it is a war of survival. Like in your
hmm
subconscious, like your subconscious is like, we got to survive, we have to be right, we have to be right. So I think that's why it's so hard for people to believe that there's an agenda or to see the agenda and
hmm
understand the agenda. But I would love to know, like, when was the first time that you clued in, like, oh, there's this big agenda, I can't do what I really want to do or say, truth or whatever.
God, I'm trying. I mean, I've worked on so many different shows. I think it really, honestly, it probably started in journalism school. The first
Hmm.
thing they teach you is, if it bleeds, it leads. That is
Mm.
the first thing they teach you. And it teaches you really to just um glamorize, I don't know if glamorize, push an agenda of like scaring people.
Mhm. Mhm.
I
Mhm.
remember I remember one of our finals was looking at, there were a couple different stories they gave us, and we had to like create our rundown for what the newscast was going to be and write the stories leading into it. And I remember it was like so and so won the World Series versus like some national disaster or whatever. Like, what are you going to lead? Like, there were two like really big things that would be newsworthy. And what would you lead with? And like everyone, like it was so pushed into us. Lead with the fear, lead with the blood, lead with the gore, lead. I mean, you
Mhm.
watch local news, that's all they talk about. I don't watch local news very often, but we both live in places where we get weather now. So I turn on
Mhm.
my
Mhm.
my Danielle Reezy on channel whatever
Mhm.
7 and listen to the news when something's coming. And and it taps into the local whatever's going on, the local news, and it's like so and so was murdered and there was a stabbing here. Like that's all there is. We're never looking at the good. And I think that was my first glimpse into what agenda the media was always pushing and the narrative
Mhm.
that was always being pushed. Because if
Mhm.
we are kept scared, we are kept in control. I realize that now. I don't think I
Mm.
realized that then. The agenda then it, obviously fed in as I did more and more work.
Mhm. Well, and the fear, just for people listening, can come from either side of the spectrum.
Uh-huh.
We have media now, of course that and I do think that there is some more sincerity. I think what we're saying is it's not bad to have a viewpoint. Like you can have a
No,
political viewpoint, you can have a bias. That's totally
that's
fine. Just being
okay. Yeah.
honest about having what your viewpoint is, what your, leaning is, just being honest. Because I think what happens is Hollywood in general, or the news particularly in general, is supposed to be, non-biased. That's the point. Like we're
Exactly.
balanced, right? But but it's not balanced.
No. And so my thing is like, if you want to watch Fox News, great. Just know that this is going to be mainly opinion based commentary. There
Mhm.
may be actual news and facts in there,
Mhm.
but we can skew anything and everything to say what we want it to say. If CNN's your jam, great. Just the same thing. Just
Mhm.
know that it is. There are some things based in fact, and we can skew any facts to support either side. That's one of the best things. It's really funny that I'm doing this now and that I'm putting myself in front of the camera now because I said, even though I wanted to, I said after I realized what happened in an editing room, that I would never put myself on TV because I can take one word that I said or anyone said from 6 years ago and put it, or a sentence, and put it into something today. You would never know. And I mean, we're going to see this more with AI in general, but like,
Mhm.
as a producer, as a, someone sitting in, or an editor in general, like we can create a sentence out of like anything. I can
Mhm.
make you say whatever I want. So we
Mhm.
have to be cognizant of that fact. We can find facts to support our opinion no matter what it is. I just invite and hope there is a future and there's a world, and I invite people to see that we can have these opinions. We can be very strong in our opinions and passionate in our opinions. I am. I very much am. But I want to hear what the other side has to say. Doesn't mean they're going to change my mind. Doesn't mean I have to change my mind. I just want to be okay with hearing what someone else believes and understanding that we might not see eye to eye, and that's okay. I think I found a lot of that. It wasn't okay to have a different opinion.
Mhm. Did you ever feel while you were there, like, did you ever feel like someone, that push on yourself, like pressure
Oh,
on
yeah.
yourself that you couldn't have your opinions that were different than other people?
So, okay, I'll just lay it out on the line. I am a conservative.
Mhm.
But I'm conservative in a fiscal way.
Mhm.
I'm not like, I'm reasonable.
Mhm.
Conservative leaning towards the middle.
Mhm.
Hollywood is not.
Mhm.
And sitting in that control room when that election happened, it must have been Hillary and Trump. Everyone had, their CNNs and their MSNBCs up, and we're just like literally everyone's crying. And I couldn't even show any sort of emotion as a political, like I love politics. And I've always like kind of shied away from talking about this because
Mhm.
I don't want to turn people off.
Mhm.
Um, but I'm sitting there with my phone in the control room in the corner, people all around me, just like trying to see the other side, watching more conservative news, watching Fox News
Mhm.
to see what's going
Mhm.
on. And that was so crazy to me because what was being reported, I was seeing what was being reported side by side was totally different. viewpoints in
Mhm.
general,
Mhm.
totally different information. Didn't change what the outcome was, but I had to hide. I had to hide every opinion, every viewpoint I ever had. And all I wanted to do was have a genuine conversation and
Mhm.
not be shamed for feeling the way I felt, because I was in a room of people that felt differently. That is okay. Like literally tears in their eyes as the election was progressing. And I just couldn't have any opinion. And there was no even question. Not that they needed to ask me, but it's like they would come up to me and give me hugs and say, "I'm so sorry, we lost." I'm like, "You're just grouping me in. You're not even like questioning what my opinion is." And
Mhm.
I couldn't say it. I had to keep my mouth shut. I didn't want to be
Mhm.
ostracized.
Mhm.
And so you play the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so funny because maybe there were other people in that room who felt like you, but because your opinion had to be hidden, you would never know.
You would never know. You would never know. And that's the thing is, and there are other people that probably felt the same way as I do.
Mhm. Mhm.
But it is so overrun with an agenda
Mhm.
and with groupthink. It's like one thought process.
Mhm. Mhm.
So take it for what it's worth. I mean, it's not to bash Hollywood. It was really great to me. But, I just want people to be more open-minded.
Yeah, for sure. And so I guess that leads us into now you
Mhm.
starting intentional media. So is
Mhm.
that your purpose behind it is to help people see all different sides? And we should talk a little bit about you starting your podcast and what it was behind that
Yeah.
and how it's morphed because it's changed a little bit
Mhm.
now. And how
Mhm.
let's talk about that journey a little bit.
Well, the whole idea behind intentional media is to become a platform where, yes, all opinions matter and all voices matter. I have also found as a ghostwriter and in publishing, um, it's all about money. I mean,
Mhm.
everything. You and I have talked about this before.
Mhm.
Everything, let's follow the money.
Mhm.
And it's all about like how many followers you have, how many likes you have, how many, like there's so many people out there with books or shows that I don't want to say they don't deserve them. Everyone has a voice, everyone deserves a voice, but there are so many people that don't get that opportunity because they don't have that platform for whatever reason.
Mhm.
And I don't think those voices should be stifled. Now,
Mhm.
obviously, publishing, and there is a business behind it. So there has to be some money aspect of it. But
Mhm.
I want intentional media to be a place where people can share their voices and their wisdom. And it's
Mhm.
not about your follower like count. If you're a B, C, D list celebrity, it
Mhm.
drives me crazy that there's so many great people doing great things in this world that won't get the chance to share that or share their voice because they don't have some connection or some in. So that's kind of like where intentional media, that concept is. And this is morphing into a place where, documentaries can be made, where podcasts can be produced, a magazine, books can be published. It's a whole media source where we can come together as like an idea factory, essentially,
Mhm.
of, of varying degrees so that we can have these real conversations. And
Mhm.
that's what I think is missing in the world. And there's just everything. Whenever money comes to play, and ask me in 20 years if we can keep that honesty and that altruism about it. But that is where it is at. And the podcast was the beginning of that. I was really pushed by my mentor, Sonia, to start the podcast. She's like, "You've got to get your voice out there. You've got to get your voice out there. You've got to do it." And so I started it, and not knowing like what I was really doing, what I was going to do. And I just started probably the first 13 episodes talking.
Mhm.
Just me, just 20-minute episodes, just me talking. And that went well. Um, kind of. I got a little honest on there, and it rubbed some people the wrong way that I was close to. Um,
Mhm.
but then, it started to get a little traction and was like, okay, it's time to start having these conversations with others. And so I started inviting guests on. I didn't realize it was going to become such a female centric show. I think
Mhm.
I've had
Mhm.
two men on the show, period.
Mhm.
It was never my intention. Like literally, I just like, she was like pushing me, you got to start this. And I just kind of did. I didn't think
Mhm.
very much about it. I came up with
Mhm.
a name, put out stuff, and just did it and started putting stuff out into the world. And so as I started bringing people on, I realized that, and I think I've told you this before too, I didn't realize I was a feminist. I was always like,
Mhm.
"No, I'm not." Like,
Mhm.
I didn't like
Mhm.
that word. Once again, it
Mhm.
has an agenda.
Yeah.
It has this, like, idea behind what it is. It's got a bad rap in media, I would say. And I'm like, "No, I'm for women being whoever they wanna be," like, and
Mhm.
then
Mhm.
I've been schooled multiple times by multiple people, "No, that means you're a feminist." So,
Mhm.
but it became this feminine show all about empowering women. And it was really fun to have these conversations. And it just like one thing led to another. And it was great. And that was kind of the start of intentional media. But the reason why, and I'm sure we'll talk about this, but the reason why we came to a pause is it became so much of what I
Mhm.
was doing. It
Mhm.
took me away from the bigger picture.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of other things I need to create and bring into the world so that when I bring the show back, it can have more legs and it can have the support it needs to grow even bigger. But it really just started out as a place to one, find my voice, share my voice, start to speak authentically. For so long, I'd been hiding who I was because I couldn't show it at work or wherever.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then inviting all these wonderful guests on, which also in turn kind of shielded my voice too. I
Mhm.
realized that was a
Mm.
big realization to me. By being so guest focused,
Mm.
I was still hiding my voice. And
Yeah.
so there needs to be a long look at like how the show is going to return
Mm.
to support all these different ideas and thoughts and me.
Yeah, so fascinating. I love to
Yeah.
hear that. And just like the honesty about it, right? Like, this is where I'm at right now. This is what I was
Yeah.
doing because I think we all hide our voice in some way. Sometimes we're
Right?
too afraid to be ourselves. And we don't think about it that way. We don't think about, like, oh, having these guests on is going to hide my voice. And for,
Yeah.
and I think, like, it's not just about having, guests on, it's about having so many that you're not doing your own. You're not
Mhm.
talking your own way, and filling your life with that and filling the podcast only with that can be a way to hide yourself, and it just shows us the sneaky little ways sometimes
Mhm.
that we hide who we are. I also wanted to say, for people who maybe have a hard time with the word feminist, being a feminist doesn't mean that you hate men or that
Yeah.
you are here to put down another gender, or it doesn't have to have all the connotations that I think sometimes people think feminism does have. And sometimes it doesn't.
Exactly.
Like you just showed, you can be conservative and be a feminist at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that's why I always shied away from it. I'm like, no, I'm not like a male bashing women. I believe in traditional roles. Like,
Mm,
doesn't
mhm,
mean that I don't
mhm,
want to own my own company and do like. So I
mhm,
have these, and I think and that goes to this whole conversation. We are
mhm.
so multifaceted. We
Yes.
can believe two things at the same time. I
Mhm,
can believe in traditional roles and still
mhm,
run a business. I
mhm,
can believe in traditional conservative values, but still have compassion and support LGBTQ rights. Like it's not just exclusive, you know?
mhm,
And
mhm,
I think that's when we think about feminism, it's like down with men, burn your bra, like pussy hat wearing women marching on
mhm,
the Capitol.
mhm.
And you don't have to be that to be a feminist.
Mhm. Totally. And I think, like, here at Feminine Alchemy, what we're trying to do is help people even understand what the feminine is. And I think that's
Mm.
the problem is, for just like you, I think your story is so amazing because it shows this, right? We've been told our whole lives that, like, being a feminist or being feminine and being empowered is being like a man. And
Yes.
it doesn't have to be being like a man. It doesn't have to be doing everything a man does. It doesn't have to be, you can only be successful if you are in the roles that a man is in. And if you're on top of the
Mhm.
food chain, the feminine is so different than that, which I think is so beautiful to also point out as you're going on this journey now,
Mhm.
and you've been coming more into the feminine, and now you're taking
Mhm.
this pause, right? You're putting yourself first, and maybe for the first time in a really long time,
Mhm.
you know and looking at, the feminine's made to receive. The feminine is a receiver. And now being like, okay, I've been putting all this out for, giving and giving and giving and giving,
Mhm.
and now I'm not receiving. What is that journey for you, experiencing the feminine and growing? I know it's a journey for all of us. We're still on the
Mhm.
journey, but how has that been for you?
I think what I couldn't ignore is that I needed to, like, I couldn't ignore my body. Like,
Mhm.
literally everything in me, and I think that's where the feminine lives, is in our
Mhm.
body. It's not in our mind, and for so long, I'm a firstborn daughter,
Mhm.
so as that, you're definitely, like, you're raised as a male, as in that male archetype,
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
science has shown it, and I've always been that go-getter. I for some reason, I've internalized, I felt horrible that my dad never had a son, so I
Mhm.
wanted to be that boy for him. I played
Mhm.
sports. I would look at whatever the boys would do. I remember, if any boy can do it, I can do it, and I can do it better. My dad
Mhm.
owns a construction company, a contract. He's a general contractor, and still to this day, I can build better than most men. I've
Mhm.
taken pride in these very masculine roles, which is fine. I love having those skills and being able to do that. But I have completely ignored everything feminine except for like makeup and clothes, maybe about
Mhm.
myself.
Mhm.
It's that push, push, push. And we can only push ourselves so far. And that is what I've realized. And that is where I'm starting to finally understand the feminine is that we are not meant to push and live in that stress and live into that push world. I had a health scare over the summer that was really huge that made me take a step back. Came back with the show, found myself exactly where I was, just pushing, pushing, pushing. And this constant working myself to death is if you do not honor yourself and your body, you will burn out and you will shut down. And I was getting to that point. I realized it was like there was nothing creative coming through me. Our
Mhm.
body is built to be a creative antenna. It is built to bring these things in. And literally, I was just like, shut down. Nope, we're not doing this anymore. And every fiber in my body was fighting me to the point where my mind could not overtake it anymore, could not push past it. And I think that's what I'm starting to realize is we don't have to push. And that's where my big feminine awakening seems to be coming from is
Mhm.
this I don't have to continue to push. I can
Mhm.
sit back, I can receive. I just did a post about this other day. Like, I was like, not wanting to work. I have all these books. I just not wanting to do anything. I don't know if it was the full moon, the feels, whatever was going,
Mhm.
whatever
Mhm.
was going on.
Mhm.
But like, I literally wanted to sit, and I felt so incredibly guilty that I
Mhm.
wasn't being productive, that I wasn't
Mhm.
doing anything, and I didn't want to give myself permission to do it, but I forced myself to sit there. And I started to realize like we don't give ourselves permission just to be. We think we always have to be productive. This is this busy culture we live in. And even when I started to take inventory of what I'd already done in that day, I'd got my kids dressed and fed. I had school was canceled again because of the snow. So I was going crazy. I had taken my son to his morning activity. I'd already gone to the grocery store. I had meal planned. I had done 3 loads of laundry. It's not like I did nothing, but I still didn't think I was being productive or doing anything. And I was just
Mhm.
like, this is what's wrong. This is what that pushing and busy culture is perpetuating. And
Mhm.
I'm not honoring myself and how I feel in this moment. And learning to honor that is a huge feminine awakening.
Yeah, constant guilt, right? I think so many women
Yeah.
feel the constant guilt. I should be doing more. I should do more, like spinning our wheels, like, oh my
Uh-huh.
gosh, what else is on my checklist? What else is when we have already done so much? And one time it came through to me because I was trying to ask my body, what do I need? What should I do? And my body was like, I want you to sit and do nothing. And like if you like it was very much, and I just had this thought come through like from God and the universe, the more you rest, the more productive you will be, right? Like the more you'll
Mhm.
get done. And I was like, that can't be true. That
Mhm.
cannot be true. I can't just
Yeah.
rest and have things come through. But as I've been trying to honor that, I find like the days that I do rest, like truly rest, are the days I do get the most done. It's like it's Allison, we have a shared friend, Allison Cullen. She talks about time bending, and like yes, like we time bend. Like when you
Mhm.
rest, you can time bend. You can get everything done even though you are still resting. And I think we have, this goes back way back in our culture. I mean, all the way to the beginning, probably the Revolutionary War and all of that, of America. I'm talking about America, and of course before then, but I think it really took off. A lot of this took off during the industrial period
Mhm.
when there was this like, you have to work to survive. We all started moving into the cities. We let go of agrarian life. And then it became this thing of, well, if you live in the city, you have to work to survive. You have to work to your bones. If you're not productive, you're not useful. And that became
Mhm.
our culture, right? Like we became like that. And I'm curious for you, because I'm sure what you're saying resonates with so many women.
Mhm.
Um, through all your conversations that you've had with people and guests, is there any other wisdom about like this culture, any other things that you have been doing to kind of let go of that, to let go of that busy, busy piece? Like, what are the things that you've been working on?
I think in general, just giving ourselves the permission to rest. I remember having this conversation with, she's a therapist and she was writing a book at the time. And it was really eye opening. It was a lot about shame, but we had a conversation offline a little bit later about some goals and some things I was working through and wanting to do. And it was like, okay, you want to do all this, you want to do more. Everything was telling me from the outside world, even my husband, my friends, everyone, you're going to have to get up earlier. You have to get up at 4 or 5 in the morning to get this done,
Mhm.
to fit this in your day. You have to stay up later and do this. And so, as a mom, it's already a full time job. I
Mhm.
have two littles. I have a 5-year old and a 3-year old.
Mhm.
They're running me ragged. So my days when they're with me, they're only in preschool a couple days a week. When they're
Mhm.
with me, it's just like I can't get anything else done. So my work hours would be before or after they went to bed. Now, as they've gotten a tiny bit older, their bedtime has now, it's not 7 o'clock. It's
Mhm.
8 o'clock. It's 8:30. I
Mhm.
think we're up at 9 at this point,
Mhm.
and they're still getting up at like 7 in the morning. So
Mhm.
to everything was telling me, if you want to do more, you need to get up at 4. You need to get up at
Mhm.
5. That was so like everything in me wants to scream at that. And we had that conversation. She goes, that's not right. Sleep is the
Mhm.
most important, one of the most important things you need to give yourself. You do not have to neglect what your body needs or what you need to fit more in. Like something
Mhm.
else has to give. And so starting to understand that like we don't have to do more. Like I don't have to get up at 4 in the morning. I still struggle with this, like trying to get
Mhm.
myself to do like be okay. And I'm really struggling with this. How do we find more time in our day? But how do we allow? Because I know when we slow down, what comes in. I've been a big proponent of journaling. I've talked to so many guests about journaling, how that like helps you connect your head and your heart, or your heart is connected through your hands, like
Mhm.
physically writing. That's where you get the messages. I know that's where I manifest best is when
Mhm.
I'm writing. I can't even find myself time for that. So it's like, how do we come back to self care without burning out? We are in
Mhm.
such a burnout culture. There's a reason why, as women, we are so anxious because we are. Like, this is something, if you've listened to any episodes on my show, you're going to find I talk about this quite a bit. As women, I think we are sold a crock of shit.
Mhm.
Excuse my language.
Mhm.
Like thinking that we have to do it all and we can do it. Just because we can do it all doesn't mean we have to do it all.
Mhm.
And we need to understand that. We don't have to. We need to do what feels right for us. And that's different on every single day. Like we have to start going into the cyclical living, the cyclical style of life, and
Mhm.
allowing ourselves the grace and the ebb and flows. And some days are going to look different than others. And I mean, you probably can go way more in depth about this because astrologically, I'm amazed every time I read anything astrological and then realize what's going on with me, how connected this all is. We are cyclical beings. I talked to Jen Rasiopi about this, God, so many episodes ago. And it's just fascinating how cyclical we are in nature. And we have to get back to that. And so I'm
Mhm.
trying. I'm trying. It's a major work in progress.
Yeah, I think that's so, so huge. And I wanted to say, right, like the moon doesn't look the same every day. In
Mm-mm.
fact, like, she looks different every single day. Like, she is
Mhm.
different every day, but we are never like, "Moon, you're not doing your job and you're not doing it," you know? Like, we love the moon, the moon still works and pulls the tides exactly the way that she's supposed to, and she pushes the water around, and she alerts everything in our bodies. People don't know this, but, like, she's a huge part of why
Yeah.
our bodies work, and she looks different every day, and she has the cycle, and we're exactly like that. We look different every day. Every day we're
Mhm.
different, but guess what? We have a cycle that we can live in and move in. So I love that you pointed that out, and that it's
Yeah.
part of, what we're talking about. And I totally agree. I think women are told all the time, you can have it all. You can do it all. But, like,
Yeah.
what a beautiful thought. Like, you don't have to.
Why? Yeah. Why do we have to? I love this. And I love the pushback that we're getting from women now. And that is actually getting a little bit of support, mainstream from men. That You're starting to see it, understand it. Like women are pushing back finally. And about like whether it's homeschooling, I wish I had it in me to homeschool
Mhm,
my kids. I know it's
mhm,
just not in my skill set.
mhm, mhm,
um, the homesteading, the
mhm,
fighting medicine, I mean, fighting the foods, like change is happening because of women and what we're waking up to and what we're taking ownership of. We're tired of this stuff. And that is one thing I will say most of my guests all agree on have been like the women's revolution. My husband has
mhm,
always said this to me, and I agree wholeheartedly. And I love that he says it. When we get together, when we band together as women, and stop fighting each other and stop
mhm,
bringing each other down, we will rule the world. We are so
mhm,
freaking powerful.
mhm,
But there's so much infighting and competition between us that we disintegrate all of our power.
mhm,
And it's time for us to finally like band together and make these changes. And we're starting to see it in things like food or, farming and environmental things. Like it's starting. It's a
mhm,
slow burn, but it is coming.
mhm,
And I
mhm.
love it.
Yeah, and I think women even making businesses that work more cyclically, or like taking their power
Mm.
back and working in that way is huge. Because I did want to point out when you're talking about, because I think so many women feel this way when you're talking about, I'm the firstborn daughter. I have
Yeah.
to be like my dad, and I have to make sure that he feels okay because he never had a son. And I think
Mhm.
so many women feel that, and it's so ingrained in us in so many different ways. And we just have this push of, yeah, we've got to fight. We have to
Mhm.
be like man. And a big way that we do that is that I think women, like you mentioned, end up competing against each other.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's all about, am I better? You're better. I'm going to have more followers than you. Or, like, really, a lot of times it's about looks, right? Like, oh, she's
Mhm.
prettier than you. Like, I've got to get Botox now so that I don't have a wrinkle, so I can look prettier. I can keep up with this culture that's like, oh, we eternally have to be young, young, young all the time. And
Mhm.
I would love to ask you about that, because obviously you have your own business and you've
Mhm.
been doing this for a long time, and you come from a very competitive field.
Mhm.
How has that been for you? Like, how are your feelings around competition with other women? Like, how was it in the past? How has working through it been for you?
I contributed wholeheartedly to the competition culture. I'm not
Mhm,
proud of it, but it's what it was. And it's
mhm,
complete, like, very few women friends in general. I was
mhm,
always a guy's girl because I
mhm,
just felt more comfortable. It's competition since the day I can remember. That has been, and even in working, I remember there was this woman, she was almost like a mentor to me at first.
mhm,
And she really like took me under her wing. This was early on in my career, and she was great. But then as I started to get better and get more control and then more experience, I found myself completely like almost like you're old, I
mhm,
don't need your opinion. I feel
mhm,
bad for this now. Like looking back,
mhm,
I'm like, God, I was such a little bitch. Like,
mhm,
it was just like this competition, like
mhm,
I could do this better than you type of thing. When like she had so much wisdom to share with me and she took me under her wing. And so then it became this weird competitive thing that was ugly and it didn't need to be that way. And I totally contributed to it. And I don't think I realized actually truly until Well, I started to realize it through the years in my 20s as I went through lots and lots and lots of therapy. And then hearing other people, what girls, we love to gossip, being at
Mhm,
dinners with other girls and them tearing other girls down. And finally, I remember speaking up once this dinner at this birthday dinner, and this one girl couldn't show up. I don't know, she had some event planned or something. And everyone was just bitching and tearing her down and saying all
mhm,
these horrible things about her
mhm,
because of this new guy she was with. And I finally looked at them and said, like, why? Like, let her live her life. How is she
mhm,
harming you? And everyone just turned on me at that point because I just got so tired of it. I just like, if I'm not here, you're saying this stuff about me too. Like, let's stop. Let's let everyone just live their life. And I noticed that from that day forward, I started to really become aware of it. But I don't think it was until probably wasn't until this podcast started till
mm,
I realized how powerful the support of women and our peers are. I know we're in a little group together even, and that has been it so good. Like,
mhm,
I'm so thankful for that. And I think out of the podcast, that's what the universe wanted to show me is how much support we have and how much women do want to help one another
mhm,
when you find the right people and when you are in line with the people you're supposed to be with and supposed to walk with, because we aren't supposed to do it alone, and most of us don't have villages to help us, so we have to create them ourselves. And it has
mhm,
been it almost brings me to tears sometimes realizing just how powerful a group of women can be who can support you, and that we don't have to live in this competitive
mhm,
space. It's still out there. Comparison is hard to shake. um, but once you start to realize how we can come together, like the last 3 years have been life changing in the fact of building relationships with women that are healthy, that are supportive, and what that does to you internally. There's just like a sense of peace that comes over you. It's really
mhm,
beautiful.
mhm. If someone is struggling with that, where would you say that they could start? Like if they're struggling with competing or comparing themselves, like where's a good place to start?
I think you just have to start looking for some sort of group, whether it's a book club, whether it's going to a like, you have to find some sort of outside source of
Mhm,
support. It could be just making friends with, at ballet class with your daughter, with one of the
mhm,
moms there or something, that someone's just typing on their phone. It's hard because it's hard to put yourself out there, especially as
mhm,
adults. It's hard to make new friends. It's really, really
mhm,
hard.
mhm,
Um, I think you just have to be open. If you put
mhm,
out the energy and vibe that you are open to it, it's going to come. Start to build boundaries. This is another big one around yourself that don't between yourself and the people that might not support you in that journey. Don't
mhm,
necessarily cut them out, but build that space, that like create that barrier so that like maybe just not they just don't have that access to you every day or as much. I
mhm,
unfollow people on social media all the time. If it's triggering, unfollow. Like start to really, and this comes back, feel it in your body, feel it in your chest, feel it in your stomach. Like you can feel that tightness. Like if
mhm,
it's like feeding you that negativity,
mhm,
then shut it down. I
mhm,
mean, I think there's also a difference between competition and like being envious. Like there's
mhm,
healthy
mhm,
competition,
mhm.
and jealousy is good in the fact that like it turns you on to like what you truly desire. But
Right.
there's like healthy jealousy and like not healthy comparison and jealousy.
Mhm,
And so start to like notice those people that you're like, God, they're doing so great. I want to do what they do. Start to
mhm,
find yourself in that field and
mhm,
less in this like, I want to talk shit on you because
mhm,
whatever. So it's like you have to like look at these like different aspects of your life. Start to start to let go of the things that are cause you to feel competitive or compare,
mhm.
and start to open up and welcome in groups of people or, conversations that feel uplifting and more empowering and supporting. I mean, it's not easy by any means.
Mhm. It's not. But I think that's such a great point about like sometimes it's healthy. Like some really like we've got to look at ourselves, right? Like what is
Mhm.
happening inside of us and is this jealousy? Because I think so many people don't realize like jealousy can be a tool to tell you like exactly what you said. This is what I actually want. This is what
Mhm,
I'm actually after.
mhm,
And I'm jealous because they have something that I'm after. And also in those points when you just want to talk crap about people, you just want to talk bad, you want to gossip. Okay, what is it about this person that's triggering you, that's making you want to gossip?
mhm.
And like that unhealthy kind of jealousy or envy, like what is it that you really want underneath that? And what is it in you that's crying out? What's the need underneath all of that? I think is so important to talk about, and can be like exactly like you said, like boundaries and all of these things can be just such a good place to start. If you're feeling competitive and you're feeling um like you want to compare yourself to other people, what is it inside of you? What is it that you're missing? Go ahead.
Well, and forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for being that competitive bitch.
Mhm. Mhm.
You
Mhm.
can't don't hold on to that energy. Just do better next time. And like you said about jealousy, that is one of the reasons why the podcast is paused. I was
Mhm.
getting so pissed
Mhm.
every time I saw the announcement of, here's my new book. My book's coming out.
Mhm.
And I'm like, what the hell? I have
Mhm.
all the skills. I know how to do this. I'm doing it for other people, yet I'm refusing to put myself first. And every time I see someone else do that, oh, the anger at myself or the
Mm.
jealousy was unreal. And the
Mhm.
only way that that was going to happen is if I take the time to do it. So, I
Mhm.
mean, you have to get honest with yourself with where that jealousy lies and what it's showing
Mhm. Oh yeah, for sure. And the forgiveness piece is so big because we're
you.
just human. We're so human. And it's okay. Like it's okay to do something wrong sometimes. And I
Yeah.
think we've demonized for so long our feelings in so many ways, of like demonizing the feeling of even getting angry or being mad
Mhm.
or being jealous, and just instead maybe having some compassion to yourself and then asking yourself, okay, what's my need that's not being met? Where
Mhm.
is the need? Like for you, right? There's a need to put yourself first. There's a need to channel this creative work that's so important to you, and
Right.
to let yourself be seen, in this new light,
Mhm.
in this new way. Cause I know we've talked about it. And I think a lot of women don't realize they struggle with this, but you and I have talked about like, why is it so hard to market ourselves? Why is it so
Mhm.
hard to say good things about ourselves, or to, put ourselves out there? And there is this underlying fear I think so many women have of being seen. We've talked about the witch wound before
Mhm.
on this podcast, and how, there's a fear that people won't
Mhm.
like me. There's a fear of other people's jealousy, retribution, what people might think about you. So for you now that you have recognized these things, you've paused, what's next? Like what are you going to do with all these, not to like put you on the spot, but you have plans going forward of how to implement these things?
I think I'm taking it honestly day by day. I'm trying to find that balance between work that I'm doing for others and work that I want to do for myself. And it's this it's this pressure cooker. I'm having a hard time navigating the pressure because once you stop the busy, once you stop hiding, then all of a sudden it's like the spotlight's on. It's like, okay, I have to do this. I have no other options now. This is what I'm doing. I'm writing my book. So the pressure is building to me. Like, I have to get this done. I have to get this done now. And so I'm trying to honor myself as best as I can on a daily basis and start to live more in that present moment and feeling of how I want to create so that I can actually have the words channel through me. I am a channel. Like, that is what
Mhm,
I do. When I
mhm,
write the first book I ghost wrote, I remember the author, the person I wrote it for, and she was just like, "How did you do this? How did you know this information? You just sat down. This is like, it sounds like me." It's like, because I channel it. But
mhm,
you can't do that when you're in this space of
mhm,
just constantly busy, busy, busy hiding. So
mhm,
that is kind of my goal now, is how do I get myself into the right mindset? How do I get my health on track so that I'm a clear channel and a good channel so that I could write this book that I'm working on and the other books that I'm working on for my clients? And
mhm,
that's really been my daily focus is how can I start to slow down so that I can create and create well, as opposed to just create being the machine that just churns things out. I realize I'm not an Energizer bunny. I might be a generator, but I'm not the Energizer bunny.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't channel, things don't come to you when you're just so in the weeds. You
Yeah.
just can't.
Yeah. I think that's beautiful. I love that you are taking time for yourself. I love your realizations. I love everything you've shared today has been
Mm.
so beautiful, so wonderful. I've loved going on this journey with you and
Yay.
just like hitting so many amazing topics and being able to look at, I think what this conversation really brings is like this wholeness of life that even from us talking about like Hollywood to the feminine to this perspective that everything is changing, everything is cyclical,
Mhm.
everything is one, and nothing is as cut and dry or as black as and white as we let it be, but that
Mhm.
if you follow your body's needs and if you follow what God's telling you, everything will fall into place. And I think that's the commonality I would see that we become more open to the differences. And so
Mhm.
I have loved, loved, loved having all your perspectives. I am so excited for your book and for everything you're doing. And I'm so excited to have you back after you've published and to
Yay.
talk all about it. Is there anything, Courtney, that you would love to leave people with today?
I think it's just like allow yourself just to experience like all of these things that we've talked about because we are going to experience them. The good, the bad, the ugly, whether it's the jealousy, whether it's like the single-minded thought, like have those arguments, like just live. Like that's what I'm realizing is we can't just be mad at ourselves for feeling one way or be only okay. We don't always have to be the most open-minded person in the room. Like we are allowed to live. We are here to experience life. We are here to experience all these emotions. Just bring yourself to a place where you can allow allow yourself to be in all of these states because it's going to make you a better person in general and more open moving forward. So I think that's just like nothing we talked about is like that unique. I mean,
Mhm.
I don't care if it's on a red carpet or in your backyard, like it doesn't matter. We all experience the same. There's no difference. We all
Mhm.
experience it. So
Mhm.
just allow those feelings to flow through you and stop shutting them down because we've been doing that for way too long. And it's just like a pressure cooker when you do.
Yeah, that's so wise. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing your wisdom with us.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Thank you.
telling us all these things. Where can people find you if they want to follow you?
Well, you can find me on my website, CourtneyMyers.com. That's where updates are going to be. You can find the podcast everywhere. It's still out. I think there's either 124 or 128 episodes. I still have a ton of great interviews. Like I have so many interviews that I need to get out. So I may actually like here or there throw one out. They just might not be as regularly, but when I have the time to do it. So definitely go follow that everywhere, anywhere, and you'll get the updates on when the new show comes out. And then, of course, you can find me on all the social sites. I'm usually intentional dot Courtney. That's where I am on Instagram. The biggest following is on YouTube, but come visit me anywhere there. And yeah,
Well, thank you so much, Courtney. And for those listening, thank you so much for tuning in. This has been fabulous, and we'll see you next week.
thank
Thanks so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did. Please make sure to give us a 5-star rating wherever you are listening and share with someone you know. See you next week.